Good evening and welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm your host, Joshua Solomon. And with me tonight, once again, is Terry Roy.
How's it going, everybody? Glad to be back.
Good, good.
Rocking my
you got
gear.
a new hat there?
Yeah. Had it for a while, but I felt like it was appropriate tonight.
Yeah. I don't actually have a MAGA hat.
Yeah.
But I do have a red hat.
That gets mistaken as
that does get mistaken as a MAGA hat because it says "Re-elect that mother F." And it's signed by Ted Nugent.
Oh, that's even better.
Can't really wear it in public too much, but
yeah. I love the Nuge. That's awesome. Matter of fact, that's someone missing from the whole public sphere that in the last weeks I haven't heard anything.
He's slowed down a couple of times in the last couple of years. I mean, he's getting up there in age, right? But he's very big in promoting hunting and all that stuff, and he had a reality show once.
Yeah.
Where you could win a hunting trip with him.
Yeah, I think I've seen that. Yeah. Full
auto hunting wild boar from a helicopter.
Yeah. In Texas, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. I remember.
I don't think anything gets any more American than that.
No, he's pure American all the way. But yeah, when you mentioned that, I hadn't heard from him at all this cycle that I can remember, really. So I hope he's doing well. If you're out there, Nuge, let us know you're all right.
Yeah. As always, Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades is sponsored by the Wilson Hill Pistol Club right here in Manchester, New Hampshire. It is the oldest sports shooting club in the state. It is located at 1732 Lakeshore Road. And the monthly membership meeting is tonight, the first Wednesday of every month, right after the show at 7 p.m. And it is open membership, so we'll see you there. And this weekend's defensive shotgun class is full, so sorry about that, but you can go onto our website at wilsonhillpistol.org and get more information or send a request for more information about future classes. So.
That reminds me of the federal election last night. I'm sure that gun manufacturers probably, they're both happy and not happy, because had it gone the other way, you would see a lot of people buying firearms between now and January.
Yeah, well, see, you would get that, right? And of course, the meme today was someone posted that they're selling a bulldozer and a pallet full of ballistic steel because they don't need it anymore because they're working on a project that they don't need anymore. But yeah, so there may still be, right, a surge, but that surge in gun buying may not happen. But on the other end of it, all the litigation against gun manufacturers will probably not take place either.
I saw that Zig got some bad cases against them because of the P320 incident. Somebody in, I think, was it Georgia? I don't recall. They just handed down a pretty big verdict. The jury did against them.
Yeah. Well, that was several years ago. They've corrected the
No, this is a case that just got decided, though.
Yeah, but it just got decided. But they did have a flaw in one of their handguns. It was a manufacturing flaw, and you could send it in to have it.
Yeah, I have a 320.
Yeah,
it's actually a very nice gun.
But yeah, the libs are always wanting to litigate against firearms manufacturers in an effort to put them out of business, in the same way that they did so with the tobacco industry, right? If they litigate, then you can't afford to keep your facility open anymore, right? And so, and of course, the other side of that is the executive pressure on agencies such as the ATF to enact rules and whatnot, outside of lawmaking, right? And so then those rules, they get put in place. ATF tries to enforce those rules, and it has to go. You have to have some really deep pockets to go against the ATF and push it all the way to the Supreme Court to get it slapped down. A lot of these things are unconstitutional. The way they make these policies based on whoever's in office and what they want. And what was I going after? The ATF, they will put pressure on small independent gun shops and gun manufacturers, of which we have a lot of them, and we've
Yeah.
had several of them owners on the show here, and just push them out of business. And once you push firearms sales out of business, all of their records
Turned over to the
are
ATF.
turned over to the ATF. And of course, the ATF isn't supposed to be keeping track of who has bought what and when and what their serial numbers are. But that's their way of getting a backdoor registration
Yeah, absolutely.
that we're not aware of.
Thankfully, that case that just came down is going to be hopefully a big stopper against the ATF and all these bureaucracies that that have been writing outside the lines and expanding their own authority. So I think that you're going to see a big change in that, and especially where we have a friendly administration who's not big on regulation in the first place. Frankly, I expect to see the ATF, the FBI, I expect to see them all from the top to about middle management cut.
Yeah, and it's already starting to happen. Their panic is already set in place. So the DOJ is already telling Jack Smith to shut it down and go home and keep your mouth shut. And,
Yeah.
Right. They're already, because what's going to happen is Trump's going to get inaugurated, and he's going to do exactly that. He's going to clean house.
Oh, yes.
And this time, he knows what he's doing. This time, he knows the system. He's been through it. He knows who to trust and who he can't trust, and he knows what he has to clean out in order to make sure things work properly. And so, when you see the Department of Justice saying today that they want Jack Smith to shut down all the federal cases and go home, that's the upper echelons at the DOJ saying, well, I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to be the one on that chopping block, so I want to make sure this is all gone, and that by the time Trump gets here, that he's a little calmed down about the situation.
Yeah, and I'm not sticking out like a sore
Right,
thumb.
and that's exactly why they're doing that.
Yeah.
So they're going to start covering their butts for the next couple of months, and as part of that butt covering, I still expect some shenanigans.
Oh, I highly, I suspect Antifa will return shortly. They're going to use they don't seem to learn, and that's why he won so heavily last night, because they just keep using the same playbook. So I anticipate they're going to try going after him. Thankfully, it's not sure yet that we keep the House, but hopefully we do, because that's where impeachment inquiries start and all these investigatory things.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll be saved by the Senate, minus, some of the rhinos,
Yeah.
I'm looking at you, Susan Collins.
I thought
So-
she should retire.
She absolutely should. That woman can put back some beers, I tell you.
Can she?
Oh, yeah. So up there in Bangor, where my father and the rest of my family are, and once in a while you'll end up in a restaurant and she'll be with her entourage elsewhere. Oh, she can drink. I'll tell
Yeah,
ya.
a lot of empties on the table.
So speaking of the House, right now, I've been watching Newsmax. Newsmax has been pretty trustworthy with calling the races. They were the first ones to call most of the states.
Yeah.
And Newsmax has the U.S. House at 194 to 210.
218 is the magic number,
And
right?
218 is the magic number. But I did some analysis, and there are 31, well, obviously based on that number, there are 31 House races that haven't been called yet.
Yeah.
Of those 31, 19 are Harris's, not Harris, 19, not Harris, the Democrat. 19 of them, the Democrats are currently ahead in the counts,
Oh, okay.
right? 12 of them, the Republicans are currently ahead in the count, and we only need 8.
Okay.
So they would have to get all 19 of theirs and still flip 6.
Yeah.
In order to win. So I'm predicting a 213 to 222 in the House, the U.S. House.
That's enough to make sure we keep our chairmanships and there's no stupid investigations launched. So
Yeah.
that would be great. He needs to really capitalize when he has this 2 years, because it's not 4 years. He's got 2 years to the midterms.
Yep.
And he needs to do what he's going to do in these 2 years, because God forbid they.
Well, he's got to hit the ground running, and I
Yeah.
think he knows how. He's
Yeah.
got his former administration, it's not like they've aged out, right?
Yeah.
He's got all his advisors. He's got a plan for who's going to be in there. He knows who he's going to change. He knows who he's going to keep and bring back. He said he's not going to involve his children, his family in there, because that was way too hard.
Yeah.
So there are some mistakes that he made that he's not going to make again.
Yeah.
And I can tell you the first mistake he's not going to make is he's not going to say anything to the FBI or to any of his generals without a lawyer in the room.
Yeah,
so,
that's good advice. I think also, not just him though, if you recall, we had the same situation last time, and the House and the Senate just, you had Mitch McConnell sitting on his hands, and they wouldn't do anything. We need our reps and our senators to meet him and say, okay, we're with you,
Yep. And I think the fact that it looks like we're going to hold both. We don't officially have the House yet, but I just gave you the numbers. I think we're going to take it. We do officially hold the Senate at 52, but Nevada and Pennsylvania Senate races are still uncalled. But both of them, the Republican is leading. So we could have as many as 54 plus the vice president.
That's a good cushion for any rhinos.
In the Senate.
Yeah.
So we'll have a little bit of a rhino cushion in the Senate. And, he like I said, he's got his plan. He knows who he needs to talk to. But what's interesting in both of those situations is that in order to get that, we flipped several seats in both houses.
Yeah.
And the fact that we flipped those seats and we have this, somewhat of a red wave should enable him to really hit the ground running on some of these things.
Yeah, no one can say there's no mandate.
Start taking that red pen and striking out some of these old executive orders from dimensions
Boy, he's got
ago.
so many things to hit. I mean, he's got to hit immigration right away.
Yeah.
That's one of the big ones. He's got to do something about the inflation right away. He's got to deal with Russia and Israel right away. So he's got a lot of things to do. I don't envy the man at all.
I think because he is the president-elect, now he doesn't have to worry about this business of being an unregistered foreign agent and all that business, right? He can take the phone call from Netanyahu like he did today and say, look, man, you got about 8 weeks.
Do it.
Right? In 8 weeks, I'll be there. But whatever you feel like you need to do in the next 8 weeks, do it, and don't worry about what the current administration has to say about it.
Yeah.
Right? And so there are some things like that he can start looking around, and he can go back to people's, because there are still Trump people in some of these agencies.
Yeah.
He can go back and say, here, I want you to do this. I want this to happen. Be ready for this or be ready for that. Maybe he can't give the orders, but he can say, look, here's
coming.
Right. So, by the time we get to January 20th, we can be already in a jog, right?
Yeah. Hopefully you're correct about people in some agencies, because they also need to tell him what they're doing for landmines.
Yep.
Because they'll be leaving some.
Yeah. So I think I think he has the ability to get out there and do that. So.
Yeah.
Newsmax has every state called except for Arizona, and Arizona's dragging its feet on counting, just like it did last time.
Yeah.
They're only at 60%, so they stopped. They stopped counting again.
Unbelievable.
And most of the news agencies haven't called Nevada or Alaska either, but in all 3 cases, Trump is leading.
Yeah.
So we're going to be looking at a.
It's got to be over 3.
It's a 312.
Yeah.
I can't read my own.
Did you stay up all night?
312 to 326. No. You know what I did? I stayed up. I watched the Bruins lose, and I went to bed. Right.
Yeah.
I'm very disappointed in the Bruins this year, by the way.
Yeah, I agree with
They're about
that.
50% right now. In fact, I think with last night's loss, they're under 50%.
Yeah, so I went and got my son at UNH, brought him. It was his first time getting to vote, and he was excited. He got to vote for Trump and his dad, so that was really great. I brought him back. We watched a little bit. I brought him back to UNH. Well, it's now 9 o'clock. I'm getting sleepy. I said, I got to drink a coffee. I'm not going to make the ride. Drank the coffee. needless to say, I didn't go to sleep last night. So, you know, I'm watching the rest of the election. I watched, actually it was great. I watched the Daily Wire. So Ben Shapiro and crew were doing it live all night. And it was a very entertaining. Ben Shapiro just went off the chain. He was just saying things you would not know.
I learned after after the Bush-Gore fiasco, I learned not to stay up all night. It just, I would just drive myself nuts.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'll go to bed and I'll worry about it tomorrow. And, you know, because I don't want it to run my life.
Yeah, obsession is dangerous.
I mean, it's different if you're actually running for office,
yeah.
right? I mean, you've got some stake in it that's going to actually affect you on day one. You have to start talking to people. You've essentially got another full-time job that you got to deal with, right?
Yeah.
So,
it was, well, I think a lot of people had PTSD from last time where they went to bed, like you said, and Trump was well ahead, and they woke up in the morning, it was like an alternate universe. So I think a lot of people were...
I was hoping for a 2016 because I did go to bed, and I woke up, I went to bed thinking that Hillary was our next president, and having lived through the Clinton administration,
I can remember
I was
well.
like, I'm going to bed, right? I'm going to need some rest. But I woke up happily surprised, right? So
you know what? You say that though. I would take 10 Bill Clintons over one Kamala Harris any day of the week.
He was more reasonable, but that was back in the 90s.
Yeah, that's a different...
when you could get a reasonable administration that you know didn't really align with your core values. Right?
They've worked across the aisle.
I don't think a modern day Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton would be anywhere near as reasonable as they was back in the 90s.
Certainly not Hillary. I don't know about Bill. I haven't heard anything really crazy come out of his mouth. So, yeah, but I agree. I mean, there's Democrats out there, and including in our own state. I mean, I work with a few on my committee who are just reasonable people. You know, but it's when you get into
you're gonna find that locally. And some other folks were happy about the results today, namely the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the S&P 500.
That's a good day for 401ks.
Both are sitting at record highs today. 1,500 points for the Dow. Wow. 1,500 points in one day.
What was that for a percent? Did you write it down?
It was 3.5%.
Wow, that's a big jump.
And then the S&P 500 was 150 points, and that's 2.5%.
Wow.
So
that's a big move. For
those seem like small numbers when you say 3%. But for the Dow, that's 3% is billions of dollars.
How'd the Nasdaq do? Do you know?
Nasdaq is just as much up.
I was wondering because of Elon Musk's impact on the administration is certainly going to indicate that I think we're going to be very space forward now. You know, under Obama, they didn't care much about space, and I think when Trump came in, everybody mocked him and laughed about the Space Force. Now that's the most important branch of the service right now. So I feel like we became a safer country last night on a lot of levels. And that's a big one, that technology.
Definitely agree. And you talk about Elon and SpaceX. We even have liberals yesterday and today say, you know, because they're very upset that Elon backed Trump, right? You know, he's the CEO of two companies that used to be very, very liberal companies.
The first electric car.
We got the electric car, and we got the social media. Two things that we just ripped away from the Democrats.
They felt betrayed.
And they're very upset with this man, and they say, "Oh, well, we need to cancel all of Elon's contracts."
Rachel Maddow, said that.
Don't say that too loud, because if you cancel his contracts, he's going to recall the Dragon, and you ain't going to have anything. To get
You'll
your
have
people
stranded astronauts.
I wouldn't put it past him. He's got a little app on his phone that says, "Oh, you don't like me anymore? Okay, I'm just going to recall that Dragon automatically." I'll bet you he's got a button for that.
I would not be shocked. Hey, what's sadly ironic is they don't know the definition of that is the definition of fascism. The government doesn't like you. You won't do our politics. Ergo, you cannot do business. That's fascism.
Exactly. Government control. Right. Oh, we should cancel all his contracts. No, that's probably the dumbest thing you could possibly do.
Well, it was
point. Rachel
Maddow. That was
right.
So,
I'm looking to invest into lots of U.S.-based oil futures.
Yeah.
Right?
Gas.
Dig, baby, dig.
Yeah.
Or drill, baby, drill. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Frack, baby, frack.
They just, somewhere I read they found a huge deposit of natural gas under somewhere, one of the southern states on the East Coast. And it was just, they said it could be
It makes absolute sense because natural gas is found near coal deposits. And we know in West Virginia and Tennessee, there's a lot of coal in there.
Yeah, yeah. And
so
they also, I believe I read somewhere about another Alaska, something they found in Alaska, where they said it would be enough to run.
Oh yeah, we have enough oil in Alaska to,
for decades.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Centuries.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So another thing, and it started to occur to me today, because I'm looking at the numbers, was the popular vote. So
Yeah, no calls
Trump won the popular vote.
No calls to get rid of the Electoral
And
College.
no one's saying, hey, we should get rid of the popular vote.
Yeah.
So speaking of the popular vote, I thought about the numbers.
Yeah.
Now, and I started questioning the numbers, and I was questioning it, and I was looking into it, and then all of a sudden, I saw somebody tweet. I saw somebody ask the same question I asked, and they had a graph for it.
Oh, really?
But so I'm gonna start by reading some of these numbers, and these are Democrat numbers during the presidential election. In 2004, John Kerry lost, but he had 59 million votes. Mm-hmm. So the Democrat candidate got 60 million votes.
Yeah.
In 2008, Obama, the Democrat candidate, won with 69 million votes.
10 million more.
Obama won again in 2012 with 66 million votes.
3 million less.
Clinton lost with 66 million votes.
That sounds like a nice flat line almost.
In 2020, Biden won with 81 million votes.
Well, that sounds like a big aberrant spike.
In 2024, Harris lost with 67 million votes.
Wow.
So let's put that graph up on the screen, if you don't mind.
So that's a 20 million vote. Where'd they go?
There's this 20 million votes. I don't know if we got that graph or not, but there's 20 million votes that Biden supposedly got in the safest, fairest election there ever was.
Yeah.
And so now they're being very quiet about that 20 million votes.
Yeah.
Right? Because the graph is literally flat.
Except for Biden.
Except for Biden, there's this spike of about 20 million votes for the Democrat candidate.
The most uninteresting candidate that the Democrats have ever put forward got 20 million more votes than
any other Democrat candidate,
including Barack Obama, who arguably.
But no one's talking about those numbers.
Yeah.
But there's these outer fringes of Democrat bloggers, TikTokers, and whatnot, who are asking, like, whoa, hey, what happened to our 20 million votes? No, there's no way we had a record turnout, but we still lost 20 million votes that disappeared into nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, no, those 20 million votes never existed in the first place.
Oh, exactly. That is good. The big thing that needs to be an asterisk that says COVID mail-in right next to that. And that's why you cannot do mail-in.
There it is. Here's our graph right here.
Yeah, that's right.
So this is the blue is obviously the Democrats, what they won in 2012. They won in 2016. They won in 2020 with this extra 20 million votes.
Yeah.
And so the question is, where did that go?
Yeah.
And the Democrats are wondering, well, where did it go? We should have 20 million more votes, so Trump should have lost.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So they believe their own.
I'm wondering, and maybe this is the hidden agenda. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping that the new administration comes in and starts a very quiet investigation. And we find out, let's do an investigation, because you've got these fringe Democrats who are screaming for an investigation.
They asked
where's
for it.
Where's their 20 million votes?
Yeah.
How come the record turnout didn't give us that 20 million that we had last time?
Yeah.
I think we should honor their request.
I think
and
you're absolutely
find out where those 20 million votes are.
absolutely correct.
And then I think what we're going to find, and it's a dream of mine.
Yes.
I think we're going to find that Donald Trump is the first man in American history to win 3 in a row.
I think you are correct.
Oh, no, he's not the first in the...
No, that's right. You got Teddy Roosevelt.
We had Roosevelt.
Yeah. Actually, Johnson, too, didn't he? Lyndon, not Lyndon. No, who was it? Oh, gosh. Or was it Johnson?
Not Teddy Roosevelt. It's
Franklin.
Franklin Roosevelt.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
we're going to find that Trump won 3 in a row here.
That's why I think it's very, let's talk about real quick cabinet appointments.
Mm-hmm.
The Attorney General, I think, is probably, if not the most, next to the Defense Secretary, the most important appointment he can make right now because of all the things that happened over the last 4 years. I'd say actually 8 years during his presidency when they were doing skullduggery at the FBI.
Right. He had moles in his own admin, right?
Yeah.
And he had people betraying him because they were buying into this crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
About 20 million extra votes and whatever the media wanted to throw at him, the Steele dossier. So, I'm sorry about that.
Oh no, I think that whoever it is needs to start he needs to start a special investigation into everything that's going on within our government and start figuring it out, starting with the election, the last election. Because if we can figure that out and root this out, because I'd hate to see him come in and just do mass firings and miss the one. You know what I mean? We got to get it out by the roots, and the only way to do that is sunlight on everything. So I really think the next Attorney General needs to be a real bulldog, and not Bill Barr.
If any of those conspiracy theories are true, particularly about the 20 million votes, I've said it on this show before. I've said it with you on the show before that I was convinced that they were going to be a little more low-key on the presidential race and try to focus more on the other races. And I think that may have been what took place here, is that they said, oh, we can't be that overt anymore with our cheating.
Yeah. They overcheated, I think. Yeah. They didn't even want to cheat that bad, I don't think. Yeah. They probably panicked when they saw, oh, we put in a few too many. Yeah. Because they saw Trump numbers coming in.
There were scary moments last night. There were trucks coming in with document dumps in Pennsylvania and Georgia last night, and people are filming these truckloads of ballots. Look, okay, where did that truckload of ballot come from?
Yeah. Well, I think credit has to be given to people like Harmeet Dillon and the people over at who's the hidden camera guy?
O'Keefe.
Yes.
O'Keefe Media Group.
Yes, because they were there. And the National Republican Party was on their game for a change, and they had lawyers in every state ready to go. So when there was a legitimate complaint, they went right to the court, and they got responses right away.
And it started right first thing in the morning. First thing in the morning, there were Republican poll watchers who weren't being allowed into Pennsylvania locations.
Yeah, or they stopped. They closed down the voting line for no reason. Sent people home. So it's not working.
There was a bomb threat at one, a gas leak at another.
Yeah, and that's sad because you know what? There's no what logical excuse could you give? I'm not letting Republican watchers come in. But other than, it's sad. But I'm glad we were on it. So what's another good position that we need to think about? What do you think about defense?
Defense?
Yeah.
I kind of like Trump's stance. I come from a military family. I'm very pro-military. Grew up in the Navy. You served as well. And when American lives are threatened or American interests are threatened around the world, there's a part of me that's okay, we need to go and take care of that, right? Yeah. But the other part of me, as a family man, as a parent, I understand that we're sending people to die here.
Yes.
And so that needs to be taken care of. That needs to be taken into account. Yeah. And I like Trump's approach to things. He was able to pull us out of things. He was able to make peace with folks. Yeah. He was able to make peace with Kim Jong-un for crying out loud. And so when folks ask Trump about the Ukraine, he kind of has the same attitude I have. The Ukraine is using neo-Nazis as their troops, right?
Yeah.
The Ukraine is not a nice place, folks.
No.
And that doesn't mean that I have any love for Russia or Putin or to see him expand his power and influence in the region.
Yeah.
But it's more of how much do we sink into this?
Yeah.
We absolutely shouldn't be putting boots on the ground, although there are boots on the ground.
Yes.
And we just don't hear about it.
Yeah.
We're sending a lot of money over there.
Yeah.
But this is one of those where I kind of feel like you got two evils and we're backing one of them.
Yeah.
You know, and we did this in Afghanistan all through the Reagan years, where we were propping up the Taliban for no other reason
And to antagonize Russia.
than to antagonize the Soviet Union.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, we were sending them weapons. We were upgrading the Stinger missiles so that they could hit the Heinz helicopters. That was a big win
Yeah.
for us in the 80s. And then when Russia finally said, "Okay, we've had enough," and they pull out, Soviet Union falls. Taliban takes over Afghanistan in the 80s,
And we left them. We did.
and we left them. That was it. We didn't finish the job, and now all that stuff's being used against us, and we did it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
This
did
time
it.
we left weapons.
We did it again. We did it twice.
Yeah.
And so this is one of those situations where I'd rather not get involved.
Yeah. I think.
And so somebody asked Trump about this
Yeah.
after it happened. And he says, "I don't care that region of the world. I don't care who wins or whether or not Russia takes over a tract of land that they claim is theirs. All I want is for the killing to stop."
Yeah.
And that's the attitude I take with the Ukraine.
Yeah.
Is I just want the killing to stop.
Yeah.
And to some extent, I take that attitude with the Israel conflict, but there's a completely different thing going on over there.
Yeah,
There's a
there is.
completely
Yeah.
different dynamic taking place there. We've got a country that is an ally of ours, has been a steadfast ally of ours, but is surrounded by 3 or 4 countries, including 3 or 4 settlements of terrorists,
Yeah.
known terrorist organizations, housed in friendly countries that are funding and aiding these terrorist organizations. And each one of these organizations has it in their charter. The Hamas charter explicitly calls for the destruction of Israel
Oh, and the United States.
and the United States.
Yeah.
So we've got a situation here where they're talking about literal genocide.
Yes.
And the only buffer is Israel themselves and whoever's backing Israel. And at this point, and for the last 40 years, as far as I've been able to tell, it's only been the United States. Even our allies are wishy-washy
Oh, the French
on
threw 'em under the bus.
defending Israel.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't understand is that we, and by we I mean the Biden administration, and probably more this military-industrial complex, baited Russia into this invasion. They insisted on Ukraine becoming a NATO country, and that was Russia's red line. I'm not going to have a NATO country on my border. And it's the same thing as if Russia went to the northernmost province of Mexico and said, we're going to make this a Russian stronghold. We would say, no, you are not. But we did that to him. We expect him to just take it.
Right.
And then we give them weapons that can strike into Russia, into Moscow.
And was it last week that they said, okay, if North Korea sends troops into Ukraine, then we're pulling off all the limits on our weapons and allowing Ukraine to use them inside of Russia?
Yeah, what?
You-
We're going to get nuked.
We're doing that a week before the election.
Yeah. And Russia warned. They said, if you use these weapons and strike into the heart of Russia, Moscow, I'm taking the safeties off our nuclear weapons. And they're playing with lives.
I think Trump's going to be a more reasonable commander in chief, and he's going to look at these things in hopefully a similar way to the way I'm thinking. And I don't necessarily have all the information. I don't get the security briefings, so I don't know exactly what's going on the ground.
Yeah.
But the attitude that we just want the killing to stop needs to be the prevailing position from which you start negotiations.
Yeah, and that's why it's important he picks a civilian. Listen, all due respect to generals, But, you know, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Well,
he needs a civilian in charge of that.
You're absolutely right, and we've had some of these conversations with our friend General Boldock, who's been on the show, I don't know, a couple dozen times.
Yeah.
And you know, he enlightened me to something that I guess I was aware of, but it didn't really strike home, is that you can become a general or a flag officer, a star, whether it's a general or admiral, you know, depending on what service you're in. You get your second star, and that's it. You're done.
Yeah, no more field service.
Right?
Yeah.
Your third star only comes by presidential appointment.
Yep.
Your third, fourth, and well, that's as high as you go unless you die and you're in war. But your third and fourth star are by appointment.
They're political.
Those are political appointments. And so you're absolutely right. By the time we get to that level where you need a 3- and 4-star general to be making decisions, that's a political appointment, and you need civilians in there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the entire purpose of the executive branch and the different branches, is to have the people are in charge of the military, not the military in charge of the people.
Exactly, and the Secretary of Defense should be a civilian, and they should answer to that civilian.
It doesn't mean that they don't have a military background.
Sure, but not directly from the military into that.
This needs to be someone who has private sector experience.
Yes.
Right. For instance, I mean, I have a friend who was commander of his own ship in the Coast Guard.
Yeah.
Right. And don't make fun of the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard does some really good stuff. But he's been working in the private sector for DoD contractors.
Yeah.
And being a liaison for a solid decade or more now.
Yeah.
That's the type of person. He's been in the industry. He's been in the military. That's the type of person that that I think you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't want somebody who's just completely fresh and doesn't understand the military. But I agree.
I remember when I joined the military in 1986. I believe it was Casper Weinberger was the Secretary of Defense, and he had some military background, but a lot of civilian. And he was very cool. He was level-headed. He knew geopolitical, how to deal with a different country, and he was great. Because that guy needs to not only, run the military, but he's also the forward-facing spear, pointing the spear when he goes to talk to countries and says, "I'm going to use this big stick," because the president can't go to all these. So it's a very important position, I think.
No, I think Trump has learned a lot. I think he's kept his finger on the pulse for the entire time that he's been out of office, and I think he's going to be able to make some of these decisions with a little bit more ease and confidence.
I'm looking forward to see it. It's going to be great watching. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about New Hampshire.
Oh yes,
this is a New Hampshire show. Let me flip.
Well,
the
first
page
let me
here.
just say thank you to the people if they're watching, Auburn, Candia, Chester, and Deerfield for re-electing me to my 4th term. Republicans in my district, we swept, all 6 of us. And it's great.
My town, we swept as well. And the sweep included unseating a long-term Democrat. And so there were a couple of interesting upsets. Right here in Manchester, on a show that's later tonight, Victoria Sullivan unseated Donna Soucy?
Yes, and she seemed to be like a permanent fixture.
Yeah, and she was the chair of the Democrat Party, or the leader.
She was the Senate president when they were in the minority. When we were in the minority 6 years ago. Yeah,
so we flipped, 4 seats in the Senate. So the Senate is now 16-8?
Yeah.
Now, when I go on WMUR's website, that's not what you see.
No.
But when you look at the numbers, that's exactly what's taking place.
Yeah, they've had some fox paws over there because they last night they had one Democrat I know who was on my committee who's been there forever. They had her losing in Nashua. And I looked at it, I was like, there's no way. There's just no way, unless something very strange is going on. And I did some inquiries, and no, she didn't lose. So take whatever you see there with a grain of salt. But I know Vicki Sullivan personally. Our kids went to school together up here in Manchester at Trinity. And I could not be happier for anybody. She has worked and worked and worked and been so tenacious, and the Democrats have gone after her in horrific ways.
They have. She's been on this show multiple times. And she's run for several different offices. She ran against Joyce every time.
Yeah.
And lost. And folks were starting to get on her. Oh, how many times does she want to lose? I mean, she was a great state rep.
Yeah.
So it's not like she doesn't have experience, in the political realm as an elected official.
Yeah.
But she was always positive. She is always positive. Even if she lost, she was like, well, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop the outreach that I do, right? The community service that she does, and the message that she sends. And so,
well, it's not for politics. It's her faith. It's her who she is.
And so congratulations to you, Victoria.
Absolutely.
So that was a big upset. That was good.
Yes.
And a lot of people just weren't even paying attention. Like, she's lost so many races. There's no way.
I'll be honest with you. I wasn't even really, maybe peripherally aware that she was running, but it wasn't even on my radar. And when I saw that, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was so happy.
So we increased our lead in the Senate. And then the House.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the House.
Yeah.
We were razor thin.
We were really in the minority, but yeah, we had a 1-2 vote. At one point, we had a 1 vote, and I think it went back up because a Democrat resigned or something. But it's been, like I said, I think on one of your previous shows, we really never had a majority because we have a rhino percentage that votes with the Democrats, and then some who don't show up. But I'm really excited about this cushion to see what Jason Osborne can do with a full. I mean, because he and Sherman Packard, our speaker, got a lot of flack from a lot of people because they just didn't understand the real political realities on the ground where we did not have the votes to pass all these aggressive things. Well, now we do. So they're off the chain.
Yeah. So it looks like there's 400 in the House, right?
Yep.
And it looks like we're going to be in control of about 224.
Yeah.
Maybe more, depending on how some of these things shake out.
Yeah.
So that's a good comfort level.
It is.
And so having both of those and the executive council, we flipped 1 seat.
Yes.
We're at 4-1 now.
Stevens, yeah. Who I've also heard great things about.
And Stevens was on the show just a few weeks ago as well.
Yeah.
Between the executive council, the increases in the Senate, and the gains in the House, Kelly Ayotte is moving into a nice, comfortable position here in New Hampshire.
She is. And I hope that she takes a few pages from the Sununu book and reaches out, to the House and Senate and meets with us, and we can share our agendas with each other and we can work together. The last few years of the Sununu administration, a lot of times we would butt heads. And I feel like there was a breakdown in communication. So I hope that she starts out right away and she can call a meeting of our caucuses and talk to us and tell us what her agendas are. Let us know right off the bat these are not what I'm going to sign, because a lot of times you write a bill and you only find out later the governor's never going to sign it. You've invested all, and then you get hard feelings. It's great to be able to run that stuff. So if there's open communication, it'll be a good couple of years. I'm excited about that too.
So you talk about some of this headbutting that took place. I mean, in the first couple of terms for Sununu, some really great things happened almost immediately. Constitutional carry. I mean, there were some really great things, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And I had some differences with the way he ran some things. Mm-hmm. And is that where we started butting heads?
I think so.
Because I think after that was all over, we tried to get a few things through to limit that type of power from the executive seat, right?
Yeah.
From the corner office, and have some oversight from the legislature after 60 days, 90 days.
It was actually my bill that got passed and that he eventually signed that restricted him a little bit, but it wasn't as much as I wanted. But 60 days, I think it gives him enough time to deal with an actual emergency. And listen, I said back then, I do not want that job. I do not envy him the responsibility he had at that moment. But he didn't have to bear all that on his own shoulders. That's what we were there for, and he should have called us back into session. And I feel like we could have, because our constituents were calling us going, hey, what is this with this executive order? What does this mean I can't my school?
And why is it going on? I mean, it went on for over a year.
Yeah, when other states I see are open, why are we doing this?
Like, what happened to 2 weeks to flatten the curve, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So is that, I'm just curious,
it is.
Is that where the headbutting kind of started?
I think there were bad.
I think we need to get back to,
simpatico.
Yeah.
There were bad feelings on both sides after that. I believe there were a couple people that even introduced articles of impeachment against the governor. They were so mad. And that obviously wasn't going anywhere. All it did was make him mad. So, I mean,
But getting back to, getting things to run smoothly again, I mean, this last term, and what was it? It was the miracle budget?
Yep.
Right? I mean, that's the kind of thing that hopefully we can continue. But on the other hand, the Dems lost some power here. Are they going to be a little bit butthurt?
That's what I'm worried about.
Kind of push back now that they really are in the minority. Are we going to have a little more infighting than we have in the last term or so?
Well, I'm concerned a couple of reasons. For Republicans as well, I have this in my mind. I call it the pendulum effect. And okay, we have power now. If we go too far, the voters didn't elect us to enact an extreme right agenda. So if we do, you're going to get the pendulum swing back in 2 years, and it's going to go back and forth. I think we need to, go right down the middle. If there's some things that we do need, and they may seem extreme to some people, but if we need to do them, we do them. But otherwise, I think we need to work with the Democrats, because all we're going to do is give them ammunition for 2 years from now. And so are they going to govern? Are they going to be our partners in governing for the next couple of years? Or are they going to be saboteurs, just trying to set up their next win? So if we invite them and say, hey, partner with us on this bill, and they refuse, well, okay, good. Now we can say we offered and you didn't want to take any part of it, and show the people that. But if we just, close the doors and we're doing this and we're going to pass it over your head, I don't think it's a good idea. I think that, I hope that we get some bipartisanship, even though it's not needed. I think that it behooves us to do it, to avoid the pendulum effect. Because remember, we only have 2 years. It's not 4 years. So it doesn't take much to swing that pendulum back if you get enough people angry. So I think we need to be just very judicious and careful, that's all.
Are there any specific topics that you think that are going to come up now that we have this? I mean, because we do have the opportunity to have a little bit of leeway in passing some things that maybe we didn't get through the last couple of terms. Maybe we talked about it before, about the games that are played where someone's counting who's here today. Oh, so-and-so went to the bathroom. Oh, I'm going to...
Yeah.
Do you think that we don't necessarily have to be looking over our shoulder that much, and can we reverse some of those mistakes?
I believe so.
And what other things do you think that we actually should get through? I don't want to say ram through, but like, we have the opportunity. Let's get this done and get it done quickly.
Especially if we know.
Are there a few things that you know that we're going to do, and maybe Kelly Ayotte is going to be on board with?
Yeah, I think that a couple of big priorities for us are going to be, the school choice. We're going to try, and I believe, expand that as much as we can, because we've got it. The Democrats insist that only the poorest of the poor should be able to use it. And it's just not fair. I mean, everyone else pays taxes as well. They should have that small portion that would be paid from the state anyway. So we've got a limit now. I think it's 300% of the poverty line, which sounds like a lot, but it's not. So you've got the working poor who can't take advantage of that, and they're trapped in the public school system, who has no incentive to do better because they've got a monopoly. So I think we're going to look at expanding some school choice, because the Democrats have been really hard against that. Number one, I think, is going to be Parents' Bill of Rights. That's going to be the first thing.
We have to get that.
Yeah. That's one of the things that we passed. We don't care. That's going through. And that's going to be no more shenanigans in school where they're allowed to keep secrets from parents. I mean, there's a list of things we had in there. And that probably be the first bill that hits the floor. I'm quite sure of it.
Yeah, we need to take care of that. What do you think about sports, women's sports, and taking care of that?
Yeah.
Ironically, it was just yesterday some Austrian news agency, some foreign news agency got a hold of the medical records of the Olympic boxer.
Yes, yeah.
And it turns out, guess what? He really is a man.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many people on Twitter called me a hater, and
oh yeah,
and I was right.
It turns out that he has a penis and testicles, XY chromosomes, and a genetic anomaly that increases testosterone production in his body, and that particular anomaly can only happen in males.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's a man. With a micro penis, which explains why he's so angry when into boxing. But
that one I want dealt with, because we're seeing parents being tossed out of games
for wearing a wristband.
Yeah. And so we need to get that in there. We need to deal with Parents' Bill of Rights and women's sports.
Yeah.
And I would like to see it go all the way up to the college level at the very least.
At least publicly funded colleges.
We can't really control the NCAA, but
no, but we can control UNH or any of our college system.
Yeah, anything that's funded with
taxpayer
our tax
money.
dollars.
That's absolutely correct. What's interesting is I put in a bill 2 years ago, and in that bill I banned puberty blockers, I banned surgeries, I banned boys and girls locker rooms, and boys in sports. And they said it was too extreme and pared it back to just the surgery, and that just passed last year. Now it's illegal in New Hampshire for a minor to have surgery to alter their gender. If they'd have left my bill alone,
still take the drugs.
Exactly. If they would have left my bill alone, it would have fixed the bathroom issue, the sports issue. I put everything in there.
Let's make sure we get that through there too.
That's coming back. Absolutely, it is. And it's not like I've said 100 times.
But it's not extreme. These are things that are common sense, and we shouldn't even have to do this if people had common sense.
This is a TikTok fad that somehow got picked up to be science, and everyone just all of a sudden obeyed it. It's a scary social experiment is what it is. If you can just pick up something off the internet and get 50% of the population to believe that a man can become a woman, we're in big trouble. I mean, it's not even a psyop. Imagine.
They worry about Russia, but Putin's over there laughing.
Yeah, we're laughing. The West.
I'm not singing his praises.
No.
All right, but you don't get to be the leader of a country, whether it's a democratic country or a communist country, a friendly country or whatnot. You don't get to be in a position like that without being an excellent orator and being intelligent, being a smart person.
Yeah,
right?
Well, he was a KGB agent.
It's very difficult to say that out loud because you're referring to basically everybody, even the most evil of all dictators. They weren't dumb people, right? And so,
except for maybe Kim Jong.
But he
was educated though. They sent him abroad.
But he didn't rise through the ranks.
Yeah.
He rose because he was, chosen by his dad.
He's an odd fellow.
But the point I'm trying to make is I've actually sat down, and most people don't do this. I've actually sat down and I've listened to entire speeches from Putin.
Yeah.
Right? Translated, of course. I watched the entire 3-hour interview that Tucker Carlson did.
Oh, that was a good interview, yeah.
He's not a stupid person.
No.
And one of the things he does is he makes fun of the United States and this whole wokeness thing. Yeah. And that's why he's going to gain influence in these worlds, because we're not putting a kibosh on that here.
Yeah.
Right? And
we're not even dealing in reality in our own country. So he's not worried about. But I think that we as a society need to look back on this whole chapter and figure out how to make sure something like that can't happen again.
No, we're not going to be able to, because this is literally the type of thing that happened during the French Revolution. Yeah. They literally had the whole transgenderism thing going on. Yeah. They had the whole wokeness thing going on. Everything is repeated.
Yeah.
But the problem is education. We haven't taught this history to our own
Yeah.
children.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that Trump's going to be on. He's going to be on the Department of Education.
Yes.
When I say on them, he's going to be on their butts and
hoping
trying to fix it.
I'm hoping he closes them down, to be honest with
It
you.
would be nice to see them close down. The NEA is going to lose their minds.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to be worse than the cackles on
Listen,
the View.
I will. If he closes them down, I will throw a party. They've caused the most uproar in our society, and it's an agency that's not even supposed to be there. And there's no education in the Constitution. It's made from whole cloth. It should not exist. They take money from the states, and they say, do what we want, and you can have your money back. It's insanity. I mean, so I hope he gets rid of it. And then let the states, if you live in a state that wants to do crazy experiments, that's you. That's what the
Constitution is for. That's what the 10th Amendment is for.
Exactly.
States' rights. But yeah, you can look at it. The Department of Education was conceived and put together under the Carter administration.
Yeah.
Right? And from there till now, we've just gone to hell.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Our standing, our educational standards in the world. I mean, we're nowhere near the top. We used to be the top, and we're never off of the top.
Yeah.
Until this took place, and you can align that with the space program.
Yes.
Prior to the Carter administration, we were walking on the moon every couple of months.
Yeah. Yeah. And he
Right?
put the kibosh to that.
And now we're losing the space race. I mean, the Chinese have their own space station, for crying out loud.
If it weren't for Musk, we would really be in trouble. I mean, he's kept us in the game.
Yeah.
And he's not even, well, he's...
And they didn't even have any faith in that, because they gave two experimental contracts for, and they gave one to Boeing, which was
a disaster.
Hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
But then they gave SpaceX and Elon Musk, they gave him like $50 million to start.
Yeah.
Right? And of course he took it, and what does private industry do versus the NASA, Boeing, big industry, big conglomerate?
Yeah. They innovate. And now they're catching rockets in midair.
Yeah. That was insane.
Yeah.
I should have brought a video after that happened.
Yeah.
Because not only did it was the first try.
Yeah, exactly.
It was the first try.
The engineering involved in that, the mathematics,
and it's
mind-boggling.
That's what the private sector can do when you let them loose and you deregulate.
Yeah, and I think that's what we need to do with our schools. Our schools are so regulated from the Department of Education with Title IX, Title this, we have to have this fair and adequate education because of the Supreme Court. No, we need to scrap all that and start the way we used to. I mean, we used to really educate our kids with a classic liberal education, and it's just not there now. Now it's teaching to the test. It's this, it's that.
Yeah. I mean, that right there, teach to the test. Nobody leaves with any sense of history or where things came from.
No, you just brought up the French Revolution. I guarantee you 90% of high schoolers have no idea about the French Revolution other than that it happened.
Right.
And there's so many things, like you said, nuance that went into it, the beginning of it, the middle of it, the after it. I mean, they may know, Marie Antoinette got her head cut off, but what about Robespierre, who was a hero and ended up being a nun? I mean,
there's so many things to learn from all of these conflicts. I mean, they're all bad things that happen around the world, but we can learn from, say, wait a minute, this led to this, led to this, led to that, right? And you get, there's a reason why Churchill was in charge during World War II is because Chamberlain.
Yeah.
Because Chamberlain was appeasing the Nazis. He was appeasing Hitler, right? And that appeasement, he just wants Poland, we'll leave him alone, let him do that, right? And it expands.
I wish we had
appeasement. So
I wish we had more time, because I wanted to bring up how England had tried to interfere in our election. They sent teams of their version of Democrats, Labour Party, over here to help with the election, but maybe another day.
We've got so much we could continue, but overall, a good night for the Republican Party in D.C., the Senate, the House, the White House, the Senate, the House, the Executive Council, the governor's seat here, but New Hampshire dropped the ball on our federal delegation. We'll talk about that some other time. I don't understand why New Hampshire keeps doing that. We're all red except for our federal delegation. Wilson Hill Pista Club, 1732 Lakeshore Road at 7 o'clock. That's in 1 minute is our membership meeting for the month. We will see you there, and we will see you next week.
Welcome to another edition of the Will and Joe Show, where, as you can see, America was made great again last night, thanks to not New Hampshire. We'll talk about that later.
You know what the funniest thing? Not the funniest thing. It was deja vu all over again.
Yeah.
Like 2016.
2016.
So I like the guys that Bill Hemmer, I think, is the guy on Fox. He's the one with the maps. You know,
Yep.
they do the percentages,
Yep.
and the guy from CNN, the white-haired guy, he's really good. He's nonpartisan. He just does the numbers. And as it was getting down to Pennsylvania, he kept looking for where the percentages were. And the data is so good that they have. They can show exactly where he was 2 terms ago, where he was versus Biden, how he was doing amongst white, blacks, Latinos, blah, blah, blah. And the data is so good if you're a data goof like I am. And, you know, you can see him. He's just like saying to Jake Tapper, yeah, I don't know where the votes are coming from. But they wouldn't call it. It was just CNN would not call it.
No, they wouldn't call it, and they would have, I mean, basically, you know who called the race?
Fox?
Newsmax.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Newsmax had enough, and they were like, no, we're calling it, and then that was it. You know, I think finally Fox called it, who knows how long after, but Newsmax called it first. And, yeah, they were all playing this game. They didn't want him. They did the same thing they did to him in 2016. You know, it was 3:30 in the morning, and he's giving his acceptance speech, and there's his son Barron, who's up there with him.
We're in the
He's
ball sleep.
he's a lot taller and a lot.
Was like 6'5".
Yeah,
now? He's huge.
He's a big, tall guy, and he was very awake, by the way, compared to when he was there in 2016, when he was basically falling over the stage. But to Trump's credit, people ask me, they say, do you think that he's going to be a different guy? Well, when he first won in 2016, he really didn't thank anybody. Didn't even mention his wife. You know what I mean? Didn't thank her, bring her up to the stage. I thought, geez, that's kind of like, he never would do that. And he was always like about him and him only. Last night, I had to just go to bed because he was actually thanking everybody in the room, bringing him up to the podium, made a big thing out of his wife and his kids and his son. And it was just, I mean, I don't know how long it went for, but it was like, okay, I'm going to bed. I think it was 3:30 in the morning when I finally said, okay, I've had enough. He won. I'm glad. I've heard all the speeches, but you know, Elon Musk was there. He came up. I mean, there was a lot of good people there, obviously, that he had. He brought a ton of people up on the stage, and I think that Trump, and I believe this in general, that you have to be able to give the other people credit, which sounds a lot easier than it is when you talk about it, but it's a lot harder to do in practice because people who are in power don't generally like to make kings of other people, right? And they don't like to give away the credit. And the best leaders are the ones that can do that. Give the credit to who they are, that are doing the job, that are making you and the government or whatever you're doing, make you look good. Right? Your bottom line in your company, it's going to be because you're cooks, right? Your kitchens are putting out really great food. You're the owner, great. But who's doing the real chef work? Who's doing all the prep? Who's doing all of the bringing in all the inventory? It's a team effort. And this was a monster team effort on the part of the Trump administration. All of his people, all of his associates, did a fantastic job, and he has now done something that is very rarely done in politics.
Was it
Grover Cleveland? Right, and so he came back and won. I mean, when they're doing his life story in 25 years, 50 years, when they're doing the history of this guy, and you know, he's got 4 lawsuits going on. He's a convicted felon.
Well, that hasn't been done.
Oh no, he was convicted, but he wasn't sentenced. He hasn't been sentenced, and they're dropping all that, as you know. All these things that go on with him and his life story and all the comebacks that he's had to come back from. It will be an enthralling story for people looking back 30, 40 years ago, like, what the hell was that country all about?
That's what I got out of last night, was that his 4 years was mired with his mouth, lawsuits, tweets, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And someone, I think, probably said to him to the fact of, do you want a legacy that you're going to be proud of for your family? Or is it going to be another one of these 4 years where you're going to, you know, and hanging out with Elon Musk and other people like that brings a different level to it. And so, you know, when I heard it last night, it was a little more contrite. And he has been more disciplined. You know, reading his teleprompter instead of going too far off the reservation, because when he goes off the reservation, sometimes he says something. But, you know, campaigns are goofy. Sometimes one thing you do becomes synonymous. Okay? I'll give you some positives and negatives. Ronald Reagan, I'm paying for this microphone, Mr. Moderator, or you know.
I paid for this microphone.
Okay.
Right.
George Sr., no new taxes. Read my lips. That didn't work out too well.
No.
You know, Jimmy Carter, not necessarily his fault, but the military attempt to release the hostages or rescue the hostages, you know, didn't work. Just some of these things. Dukakis looking like Beetle Bailey when he was driving the tank, you know.
Yep.
And John Kerry with his bone white legs trying to windsurfing. You know, there's certain things that they try to do, but with Trump, it seemed like when he was at McDonald's, it was down to earth. It seemed like when he got in the damn garbage truck, it was down to earth. So it's funny how certain things.
Yeah, well, Cackles didn't help herself. I mean, she had this crazy nervous laugh, and she talked in riddles. and she defined her own self very early in Biden's presidency, and I don't think she ever overcame that. I mean, I will tell you, I am surprised, and probably I'm not upset. I'm not mad. I mean, if Trump would have lost today, you know, I wouldn't have been. I think I'm just.
Did the world explode?
No, nothing happened.
Did the world go to? Did the United States, you know, crumble into oblivion today?
I'm in a much better world and I'm in a much better place. I won't get any more letters from my favorite guy who likes to send these things to my office.
We'll read those in a second.
I can't actually read some of this stuff, but
So
the true fact is that most of you is Greek, and the fact no one calls your openly show. What a great call-in show with no callers. I have not called your program for over a year. Now, for some reason, my phone is blocked. Nobody's phone's blocked here. I listened to your BS on Biden going to Delaware. Fact check, President Trump, blah, 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 his secret service. It's just all of your callers have died, been blocked, or just sick of BS. Yeah, well, yeah, I know who it is. But it's just amazing to me that, you know, and I get these letters at my office from these real serious Trump haters, in the fact that we do this show and that we point out a lot of stuff that just doesn't jibe with their mentality or thought process. But to think that anybody would actually turn the keys over to that woman, to the White House, to the nuclear codes, she is the most unserious person I've ever seen. I would trust Elizabeth Warren, because Elizabeth Warren, as much as she's a wacko, actually is smart. She's just off the planet, but she's not. She's got an actual brain. This woman, Kamala Harris, rose through the, you know, whatever, the echelons of politics. You know that they couldn't find one argument she ever made as an attorney in court. They never found one case that she actually spoke in front of a judge for. They can't find anything on this woman who has climbed through all of these particular positions that she's gotten through and gotten to this part. I mean, Trump may not be perfect, but at least the guy's built some buildings in his day. You know, I mean, he's been in the real estate field and the buildings and the. I mean, he's owned massive amounts of businesses.
Would you have a problem?
It's crazy that people would vote for this woman.
I'll preface this by saying I would not. Would you have a problem with a female president?
No, of course not.
Now,
not at all.
We didn't care for Hillary's politics, but would you agree with me that Hillary was probably a really intelligent, smart,
no
qualified
question.
lady?
Yeah. She's a conniving, smart, manipulative, got to where she got to by, she was in a dummy, and she didn't get there because, she wouldn't get there on her looks, by the way. Hillary didn't. She got there on her brains, and there's no question that she would have been the president. She wouldn't have blown the world up. She, you know, I mean, she made a lot of dumb mistakes.
Secretary of State, Senator,
right?
You know,
no, that's a smart woman.
That's take Maggie Thatcher.
Yeah.
Margaret Thatcher.
Right.
That's the kind of woman, Hillary Clinton and Margaret Thatcher, that I want to be the first female president of the United States.
Yeah, I'm glad Hillary didn't win. I'm glad Trump did. We got to learn about how the deep state works. We got to learn how embedded Washington, D.C. is. There's a statistic that came out that I've seen it before, but it's still mind-blowing to me. D.C. voted, you know, District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. voted for Harris, 241,929 votes to 17,178 votes for Trump. So 92.59% to 6.57%. No, that's ridiculous, right? I mean, think of who lives in Washington, who runs D.C., the most power central base in the United States. And where did all of the J6 trials take place, right? All those people who got arrested, over almost 3,000 of those people who've been arrested, or over 2,500 people who've been arrested, hunted down in their homes in small towns across America, brought back to D.C., where actually the jury is 92.5%, well, probably not 90, but a good 85 or above percentage hates Donald Trump, hates the Republicans, and I mean, you're supposed to get a jury of your peers in a criminal case. Do you think they got a jury of their peers in this? These people live in an absolute bubble. All these people have been put in jail.
Well, most of them are lawyers. They work for the government.
They're all government. Somebody asked me, what's the bureaucracy? What's the definition of a bureaucracy? That's where the bureaucracy is, right? D.C. is the bureaucracy that runs this country. And you want to talk about an embedded deep state power base and people who do not like to give up their power. And they have a lot of power down there. It's called the swamp for a reason. We're in debt to wherever. We're in debt almost $36 trillion because of the swamp, because of the lobbyists, because of the power in Washington, D.C. And for Trump to come in here, go in there, boy, I don't know how he can trust anybody in that whole town.
No.
6.57%. You got 17,178 votes. Probably all the cab drivers.
I'm surprised there was 300,000 people.
Right?
in
All your
it.
blue collar people is probably all he got.
The as of 4 or 5 o'clock tonight, this does not include Nevada and Arizona because they haven't officially called those two yet. Trump had 72,083,000 and change. Kamala Harris had 67,275,000 and change.
5 million votes.
Yeah.
You know what the big chart that's going across
they're going to both those going to go up. It'll
Right.
be 75 million by the time he's done.
the chart that's going out across the country, and everybody's talking about it, is they took Obama,
Yeah.
and then they took Trump, and then they took Biden, and they took Harris. Right. So they took the numbers across. If you just took Obama and Harris's number, what they got, Obama got 69 million votes. Right. Then you went to 81 million votes for Biden, and then you dropped to 65 million votes for Harris. Where did 15 million Democrat votes go in that 2020 election? The Republicans, you can see their graph, but the Democrats are basically flatlined over the last 3 elections, except for that anomaly, of course, when they were able to use the ballot boxes and the drop-offs and the mail-in ballots, and there was no 81 million people who voted for Joe Biden in 2020. So when they say it was rigged, it's pretty obvious because 15 million people did not disappear in 4 years. To go from 81 million Democrat votes or whoever, Republicans and independents, did not disappear. And Trump's number didn't go up that exponentially either. It's not like he got 81 million votes, right? So, yeah, what did he get?
72.
Right.
But that's
72.
not including Nevada, Arizona, and I think Minnesota.
So she's at 67 right now.
Yeah, so she'll be at 69. He'll be at 75 or 76.
74, right.